Steph Curry, the greatest shooter ever, has a looming mega matchup with LeBron James in the second round of the NBA playoffs after producing a dazzling masterpiece of a Game 7 performance, on the road no less, pouring in 50 points to lift the Warriors past the Sacramento Kings. His 50 spot is the most points in a Game 7 in NBA history, but with the drumbeat for Steph Curry already being a top 10 player of all time, the mounting narratives to make him a top 5 player, or possibly even arguably the GOAT, will only get louder the closer he gets to a 5th ring. So with that in mind, let's review the reasons why Steph Curry is the most overrated player in NBA history. Yo, what's up guys, and welcome into the channel. If you enjoy the video, please click that subscribe button below. Now let's get into it. And before we get started, let me first point out that there is an obvious paradox within sports. It is possible to both be great and simultaneously overrated at the same time. I know this concept will be difficult for many to wrap their minds around, but by me saying Steph Curry is overrated, it doesn't mean that I don't recognize and accept his greatness. But there are a finite amount of places in the top 5 and top 10 all-time players. It's therefore important to understand comparatively how Steph stacks up with these other players to understand the full context of his career. Curry has had a relatively unexceptional career from a bulk stat accumulation standpoint, as he is 35 years old currently, and we can find him 43rd on the all-time scoring list. And for context, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Chris Paul are the active players with more career points than Steph Curry. Meanwhile, Curry is 45th in NBA history on the assists list. Current active players with more assists than Curry include Chris Paul, LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kyle Lowry, Drew Holiday, and Mike Conley. Curry does fare better in the playoffs, as he is 13th all-time in playoff scoring, but still far below LeBron James and Kevin Durant for active players. For additional context, he is still 200 points below Tony Parker on the all-time playoff scoring list and nearly 2,000 points below Kobe Bryant. Curry has the 17th best point per game average in NBA history, averaging 24.62 points per game. Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James all average roughly 3 more points per game for their careers than Curry, with even Damian Lillard and James Harden ranking higher than him in terms of current active players. In this era of lackadaisical and non-existent defense, illustrated by the rising scoring and pace of play, individual efficiency is also at sky-high rates. During Steph Curry's 14-year career, average NBA scoring per night is 105 points per game, and it has been on the rise drastically for the last 5 years in particular, with average nightly scoring swelling to 112 points per game over that span. For comparison, over Kobe Bryant's entire 20-year career, running from 1996 to 2016, average nightly scoring was just 97 points per game on average. As a consequence, player efficiency and scoring rates were much lower during that time. Only one player that played the entirety of their careers during that 20-year span is in the top 20 of all-time PER, and that was Tim Duncan at 17th. In this era, we have an absurd 9 players in the top 20 all-time in PER, with Curry being 20th on that list. The active players above him are Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Karl Anthony Towns, James Harden, and Chris Paul. It's impossible to review the raw numbers and conclude that a guy in Steph Curry, who has fewer points than Gary Payton, a lower career scoring average than Damian Lillard, and a lower career PER than Karl Anthony Towns, is a top 5 or even top 10 all-time player. But what about his peak dominance? Steph Curry has been named All-NBA First Team 4 times, Second Team 3 times, and Third Team once. That is 8 All-NBA team selections in his 14-year career. For comparison to other guards in this era, James Harden has 7 All-NBA team selections, Russell Westbrook has 9, and Chris Paul has 11. For some historical context at the guard spot, Gary Payton had 9 All-NBA selections, Magic had 10, Stockton had 11, Jordan had 11, Jerry West had 12, and Kobe Bryant had 15. It's obvious Curry's impact cannot be felt in any tangible number or metric, but he has been the most successful player in this era, winning 4 championships and marching potentially to a 5th. So let's drill in and examine these championships a bit closer. I think it's important to point out, firstly, that Steph Curry played 5 full seasons in the NBA prior to Steve Kerr's arrival. During those 5 years, Curry averaged 20 points per game, made 1 All-Star team, and was named All-NBA third team once. The Warriors had a record over that span of time of 183 and 211, and Curry won 1 total playoff series. Kerr's impact cannot be overstated in Curry's success, nor can the supporting casts Curry has had the luxury of playing with. In 3 of his 4 championship wins, Curry has had at least 2 additional All-Stars on his team. In all, Curry has played in 6 finals, and in those seasons, he has played with teammates who were named to 12 All-Star games in those 6 years of runs. For comparison, Michael Jordan played with only 1 All-Star in Scottie Pippen for all 6 of his finals runs, and Pippen was only named an All-Star 4 times out of the 6 years. Kobe Bryant, who is notoriously disparaged and said to have been carried to 3 of his championships, played with only 1 other All-Star in all 5 of his championship runs. The most All-Stars any single Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant team had that made it to the finals was 2. Kobe and a teammate, Jordan and a teammate. No all-time great has ever had a championship team which consisted of 4 All-Stars in one season. Not Kareem, not Magic, not Bird, not Jordan, not LeBron, not Kobe, not Duncan, nobody. Steph Curry, though, has had 2 championship teams with 4 All-Stars, the 2017-18 and the 2018-19 seasons. And speaking of getting, quote, carried, in the 5 finals runs with Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant in the playoffs for those 5 years, spanning over 91 games, averaged 26 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, and 5 assists, while Shaq averaged 27, 13, and 3 during that span. Looking at the 2001 NBA playoffs in particular, while the Lakers were defending their title and winning the second of 3 consecutive championships, Kobe averaged 29.5 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. The Lakers averaged 103 points per game that season in the playoffs, meaning Kobe scored or assisted on 41% of his team's points during that playoff run. For comparison, the highest percentage of his team's total offense that Steph Curry has ever produced in any of his 4 title runs was 39%. So Kobe, being carried, was better than Curry at his absolute best. And Kobe, according to many, is only a fringe top 10 player, while narratives for Curry as the GOAT are actually starting to crop up more frequently. In terms of competition, Steph Curry has played 18 50-plus win teams in the 28 playoff series he has played in thus far. That is 64% of his total competition. For comparison, Michael Jordan played 27 50-plus win teams out of his 37 playoff opponents for his career, which is 73% of the time. Meanwhile, Kobe Bryant faced a team that won at least 50 games an eye-popping 86% of the time in his playoff career, as 37 of Bryant's 43 playoff opponents won at least 50 games. Kobe has 26 wins in the playoffs against teams that won at least 50 games, nearly double that of Steph Curry's 14 such wins. Finally, there is perhaps no more damning case against Steph Curry being a top 10, let alone top 5 player of all time than this. Curry has never been the best player in the NBA during his own era, arguably not even for 1 year. I know, hot take alert! But this is really not that controversial. Curry has been in the league since 2009-2010. Over the front half of his career, it is pretty undeniable that some combination of Kevin Durant or LeBron James has been the best player, until likely around the 2018-19 season when Giannis won back-to-back league MVPs and a Defensive Player of the Year award. Nikola Jokic would win the next 2 MVP awards, and Joel Embiid would finish top 2 in the voting for 3 consecutive seasons. The one year you could arguably make a case that Curry was the best player in the NBA was in the 2015-2016 season, when he led the NBA in scoring at 30 points per game, and the Golden State Warriors won an all-time NBA record 73 games in the regular season. There is a compelling argument to be made. Not only was this easily his best season ever, but also the one and only year he was the best player in the NBA. However, in this year, he also became the only player in NBA history to blow a 3-1 series lead in the NBA Finals. His 73-win Warriors team had a 3-1 lead on LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Warriors would have 2 of the final 3 games in the series at home. In that series, Steph Curry averaged 22.6 points per game, 4.9 rebounds, and 3.7 assists, while shooting 40% from the field. LeBron averaged 29.7 points per game, 11.3 rebounds, and 8.9 assists on 49% shooting. But wait, there's more, as Kyrie Irving in that series also averaged more points and assists with fewer turnovers on a substantially higher field goal percentage than Steph Curry. Not only did Steph get soundly outplayed by LeBron in the series, but he got dominated by Kyrie Irving. Very difficult to make a case in hindsight as Steph Curry being the best player in the NBA this year. So now I want to ask you for your own top 10 list. Whoever it is, regardless of the groupings, I can guarantee every one of those names were the best player in the sport for an actual span of time. A player who dominated a decade. At the very least, someone who was the best player for a couple of seasons. How could Steph Curry possibly ever be considered to be the greatest player ever when he was never the best player in his own league? Maybe we can try something new. In this era of hot takes and perpetual legacy debates, could we possibly just appreciate a player's greatness without devolving into hyperbole and overrating them to preposterous levels? I know this is asking for a lot, and the conversations on Curry only promise to get louder and more frequent the closer he gets to another title.